very long to know which side of these two principles had precipitated his audience with you. If you are on the wrong side, the conversation would go something like this. If I can use my illustration, this is how he would do it. As soon as you enter the door, you know his finger, he would point that finger at you and say, Dr. Jegere, this is not personal. That's how he always started. This is not personal. So that you don't feel like he has invited you there on anything personal. And at that point, if he told me this is not personal, my adrenaline would start surging. I would start looking for explanations and the remedies because I knew that there is something here that has not gone right. If the explanations were not making sense, the most common statement that he would use, and I'm sure some of the CEOs here went through the same, he would say, Dr. Jegere, for some reason he never learned how to pronounce my name correctly. He would say Jegere. He would say, stop right there. I want you to go and sit somewhere, record what you are telling me, then listen to yourself. Of course, he was inviting you to reflect on what you are telling him. And then he would give you very precise guidance on how you would tackle the issue at hand. If you are on the right side of the principles of effectiveness and efficiency, Professor Magoha spoke very many of the Kenyan languages. So for me, the opening statement from the door would be, Mutogoria. At that point, I knew everything was okay. And he would go on to explain how things have been done well and how we should continue building on the things we were doing right. That was Professor for you. Forthright, not missing words, and focused on results and not anything else. As a tribute, therefore, we as CEOs in the sagas and in his memory, we will uphold the principles of effectiveness and efficiency in public service. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
That's excellent. He kept it short, to the point, and I hope that he sets the pace for the rest of us. Next to come is the representative from the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council, I guess. KMPDC, who is that? And that person gets ready. We have also the representative of the University of Nairobi. And next will be Maseno University representative. Let me ask that if you're on the other side, please just come here as I mentioned your organization so that we have some extra seats. You can sit here so it takes less time to come up here. And that will be followed by the director of Starehe Boys Center, who is already seated here. And we'll follow that with representative of his friends, Professor Mwanda, who read the eulogy already, a representative of doctors and surgeons, representative of former colleagues, that will be CS Farida Karone, and representative of the Ministry of Education, the ambassador of Mali, the ambassador of Nigeria, in that order. I'm just saying this because I want everybody to come close by. Yeah, we have some extra seats over there so that you could just be close by. So, representative of KMPDC, please.
Well, morning, everyone. Dr. David Kariuki, representing the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council, that I had a direct interaction with Professor George Magoha for more than 30 years. He was firm but kind to us. Firm because he said, as a student, he wants the day he will require to be served by you, you will know what you are doing. So he didn't care about how he treated you then, but he was very considerate. We all knew him in our own ways. Some as a driver without a reverse gear. Once he decides to move, he doesn't see a wall. For the 30 years, he has made remarkable contribution and service to the Kenyan health sector. It was with shock that we received information that Professor George was no longer with us. Very distinguished, he led our council through a period of incredible growth and strengthened our influence in medical regulation across our country, the East African community, and Africa. He was first registered at the council as a specialist medical practitioner, surgeon, in the year 1988 upon his return from studies in Nigeria and elsewhere. We then registered him as a subspecialist urologist in the year 2004. Beyond being a licensed specialist practitioner, an astute scholar, and a teacher of medicine, between 2000 and the year 2019, Professor contributed his own personal knowledge and administrative expertise. For 10 years, one as a member of the council, which was called a board then, and a further 9 years as a chairman of the board. Professor won his first election, not a political one, a professional election, to serve on the board of the Kenya Medical Practitioners Council, because those days, doctors used to elect somebody they think is going to advance their concerns, and Professor was elected for that. He won for a second term. After the second term, the government, through the Minister for Health then, recognized his dedication and appointed him as the chair of the medical board, a position he appointed a cabinet secretary for education. During the time he was with us at the council, Professor contributed to the numbers of medical practitioners in this country. When he joined in 2000, we only had 4,900 medical practitioners general in the country. By the time he left active service in the board, we had 11,768. 2/3 of these were done when he was our chair. Number of specialists increased sixfold, from 445 to 2,900 during that period. He has also helped us to make sure, because of his dedication and need for quality health services, guided the council in producing and developing many documents, policies, guidelines that as today guide the training, assessment, registration, licensing, and fitness to practice and the discipline of medical practitioners in Kenya. His uncompromising and no-nonsense approach, coupled with his ability to inspire and challenge us, to sacrifice and do our best, saw him lead the council in constructing our current 4-story modern complex. Just to say that when he was appointed cabinet secretary, the building had some loan that had not been paid. He said he's not going to be appointed, to be sworn in if it had not been paid. And my colleague, CEO before me, Mr. Yumbia, who is with us, before Professor Magoha was sworn in. Get us out of that place. Even in the best of times, he reminded us that the work that we do can be challenging and demanding, but it is always achievable. And it's the spirit that we are taking forward with us. Beyond our borders, in the East Africa region, Professor led the medical councils of the East African community in ensuring that the countries in East Africa can be able to share medical practitioners when needed. And so he led in the development of joint checklists, joint documents, guidelines, and curricula for medical schools across East Africa, which we use today. So today, our Kenyan practitioners can easily work anywhere in East Africa. In 2013, Professor was again elected as a president of the Association of Medical Councils of Africa, under whom he has developed many protocols that eventually we believe will make easy for medical practitioners to work across East Africa without having to undergo examinations. Thanks to Professor Magoha, this may become possible. Globally, he also made sure that Kenya became a member of the International Association of Medical Regulatory Authorities in 2012 at a meeting held in Ottawa, Canada. We have domesticated some of the policies that Professor helped to develop at that level. Though our towering giant has fallen, we believe that in pursuing the progress of his achievements and our shared commitment for robust regulation, we will find determination to develop new and innovative ways to deliver health regulation that is fit to build on Professor Magoha's legacy and vision for better health care for Kenyans and Africans. We will be forever grateful for his leadership, dedication, and most of all, friendship. We also wish to convey our condolences to the family. Professor would never have been with us if Dr. Barbara and Michael did not share his life with us by allowing him time away to join us and build our council. So may the good Lord continue to give Dr. Barbara and family the strength to deal with this trying time. As I conclude, I also wish to pass condolences from across Africa where he had many friends. The medical councils of Tanganyika were here yesterday, Uganda Medical Council, Rwanda Medical Council, Nigeria Medical Council, Gambia Medical Council, and the Association of Medical Councils of Africa, to name a few. Fare thee well, Professor Magoha. We pray your soul to rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Yeah, I do have the honor now of inviting the representative of the University of Nairobi, but before I do that, I just want to acknowledge the presence, the distinguished presence in our midst of Honorable Meli, Member of Parliament for Tinderet. Thank you, sir, for sparing the moment to be with us here today, and the great Member of Parliament, Beatrice Ilachi. I've also noticed the presence of former PSs, Julius Nkuli, Dr. Desai, and Dr. Yuan. Thank you very much. University of Nairobi. Okay. Professor Wari will be speaking on behalf of the council. Is that? Yeah? Okay.
Greetings to all of us who are sad about this early death of Professor Magoha, because 70 is quite early. But we thank God that his contribution is like he lived for 500 years. I begin by giving condolences to his family. We who worked with Professor Magoha were always aware of how important his presence and his contribution was to the well-being of society. And so, to be in his family and lose him must even be more difficult. We extend our condolences to you, and we shall keep you in our prayers. In my role as the chair of the University of Nairobi Council, I just want to mention some of his contributions to the institutional development of the University of Nairobi. Professor Magoha joined the University of Nairobi in 1988 as in the Department of Surgery, and he soon became the chair of that department. Then he became the dean of the medical school of the University of Nairobi. From being dean of the medical school, he became principal of the College of Health Sciences, which puts all the medical studies together, including dentistry. From that position, he became the deputy vice chancellor of administration and finance in the university, and subsequently the vice chancellor of the University of Nairobi from 2005 to 2015 for 10 years. So you can see how extensive his involvement was at the top level of each institution he worked with. He was deeply appreciated, and we appreciate his contribution. As we see, he brought the University of Nairobi to another level by his style of effectiveness and efficiency. And he left a much stronger university than one he found. And so death has taken him away. When he retired from the University of Nairobi, as you know, he became a cabinet secretary and was already contributing, and then he had retired from that. So we are grateful. God gave Kenya such an outstanding person and such an outstanding professional, both in medical things, but also in overall administrative capacity. We pray for his family, that God will keep them well, and for all his colleagues, that God will keep the work that he was involved in going. And may the Lord God Almighty bless and rest his soul in eternal peace. Thank you.
The current Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, Professor Kiama, has a tribute to make. Thank you.
To the family of Professor Magoha, to Babla and Michael, who have in their own right also been members of the University of Nairobi community, and all of us here, we pass our condolences. I just want to be quick. Magoha had this mantra: do it with passion or not at all. This quote from an English writer: Professor Magoha would approach any task that he set out to do. His work ethics was driven by one singular goal: to deliver nothing but the best. He served the University of Nairobi, as the Chair of Council has explained, up to the level of Vice Chancellor. Professor Magoha's contribution to the university was palpable, for he left clear footprints everywhere he passed. On behalf of the University of Nairobi, I want to appreciate the role that he played in raising the stature of the university to the left it. Like we do, we say every and passes the baton to the next one. he served the university for 10 years as Vice Chancellor. And I was privileged to serve with him in various committees. He would take his time to synthesize an idea and even consult over it as much as he would do. But once he was convinced about the direction to take, there was no stopping him. It is in this clarity of purpose that saw him accomplish many things for the university. He inducted me together with other scholars in the university leadership, and in particular, he appointed me to serve as chair of the Department of Fetal Anatomy and Physiology, in addition to the role I was playing as Associate Dean of the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine. He later appointed me to serve as the first director of Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies. The institute is closely associated with Professor Magoha, who spearheaded its establishment after a meeting with the late Professor Wangari Maathai, the Nobel Peace Prize winner 2004. Although Professor Maathai did not live to see the realization of this project, its firm foundation has propelled it to become a five-blood center of excellence in issues of environmental governance and peace. He appointed me to serve in many roles, but quickly, one of those he did was to chair a committee to give the election on SONU elections that had failed twice. When I presented the report to Senate, the Senate, in his characteristic style, there was quite a bit of argument because the report had brought out certain things, aspects. But in his characteristic style, he said, as somebody said, Professor Kiama, don't be intimidated. He said, there's no problem. I'm only preparing him to be the future Vice Chancellor. That brought some relaxation in Senate and allowed us to proceed and finish the report. And that anchored the direction the Senate took under that leadership, anchored the student leadership for many years. Ladies and gentlemen, we can say many things about Professor Magoha, but it all boils down to work, service, and sacrifice. Certainly, he has left the world a better place than he found it. Thank you, and God bless you.
Professor Magoha looked forward to establishing or helping the establishment of the Department of Medicine at Maseno University. That became the bridge too far that he was not able to cross. I'd like to give just 1 minute to a representative from Maseno University to bring the message of condolence from the university, if that representative is here. If he's not here, I'd like to move to the next person in the agenda, and that is the director of Starehe Boys Center. The Starehe Boys Center was very dear to Professor Magoha. He was an alumni of the school. And may I take this opportunity to invite Dr. Josephat Mwaura. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, MC. And just for clarification, over these last few days, I have spent a lot of time with doctors and professors, and some have started calling me doctor. I am not one of them. I cannot claim that title. I am a simple CPA, not even FCPA, but most people call me Josephat, and those close to me call me Jos. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Professor's relationship with Starehe started in 1967 when he joined Starehe Boys Center and left in 1970. And to keep this brief, I will share with you words that we receive when we go through Starehe and at the end of our time in Starehe, which we call the church, and that governs every old Starehian. And I have the permission of the MC to speak after me briefly on Old Starehians, the patron of the Old Starehian Society, which comprises all old boys of the center and ladies of Starehe Girls Center. The Honorable Peter Kenneth will speak after me. So these are the words that Professor went through when he left Starehe in 1970. I charge you never to forget the great benefit you have received in this place. And in time to come, according to your means, to do all that you can to enable others to enjoy the same advantage. And remember that you carry with you, wherever you go, the good name of Starehe. May God Almighty bless you in your ways and keep in you the knowledge of his love now and forever. Those are the words we are discharged from Starehe with. And I will say 4 things. One, that Professor Magoha benefited from Starehe is not in doubt. He has reminded us at every occasion. 2, that Professor Magoha did everything within his power to enable others to enjoy the same advantage is also self-evident. He has been a great supporter of Starehe. In fact, in words he spoke in Mombasa on the 19th of November, 2018, he said, "I will give my last drop of blood to Starehe." And 3, that Professor Magoha carried with him, wherever he went, the good name of Starehe. His exemplification of the values that defined him in Starehe, again, is self-evident. And lastly, that the man was blessed. Everything he touched turned to gold. And as we have heard from the reading, that if you are disciplined, you will be blessed. Prof was disciplined, and he reminded us, those of us in the center now, that all we must do. In his time in 1967, Starehe was not an academic giant, but was a place of shaping character. And all we must do is focus on our character, and everything else shall be given unto us. May the Lord rest his soul in eternal peace.
Archbishop Philip Anyolo, the entire clergy, Mama Barbara and Michael, family and relatives, distinguished mourners. We learned from school those days under Dr. Griffin with another old boy who is a MC, that because in another forum they are all under me, I should say something. So perhaps let me start by acknowledging the entire Starehe fraternity, both boys and girls, alumni, to stand up wherever you are. Please. Thank you very much. Thank you. We all know that Professor Magoha had his family and relatives, but we also know that he had many brothers and sisters in the Starehe alumni. I had a personal relationship with him, but I want to say a few things about his relationship with Starehe. I thought one of it the director would have mentioned. He was very close to Dr. Griffin. And in 2005, that evening, one evening when Dr. Griffin passed on, and I called him, and he said he wanted to take charge of looking after the remains of Dr. Griffin. And I think he supervised the entire work of preserving that body in a way that he used to tell us it could stay for 200 years. And that is how close he was to Dr. Griffin. The second one that I remember about Starehe is the day he was sworn in as a cabinet minister. He actually called me and told me to pass a message to the director that now that he was a minister for education, the management team and the director needed to work hard because from where he sat, he could not be seen to give any favors to Starehe boys. And that was a principle in which we all knew Professor Magoha to be. I recall an event, again a sad event, when he lost his mother. And I went to Marenyo village in Gem for the burial. And when he saw me, he asked me, why didn't you tell me you were coming? And I told him, in the Starehe Brotherhood, I cannot tell you I'm coming to bury my mother. I just show up. And although many people think that Professor Magoha never smiled, he actually smiled and laughed. In his days as a VC, especially in the early days as the Vice Chancellor of University of Nairobi, he had difficulties with the Ministry of Education. And the Minister for Education was the late Saitoti. And I'm the one he talked to who brought them together because he needed funding from the ministry. Perhaps many of his secretaries at the university will recall I used to come there for a cup of tea. Now they know what we were plotting as brothers, to have the Ministry of Education support the University of Nairobi. On the day that Professor passed on, and I've shared this with Barbara and Michael, I was having lunch with a friend of his. And this friend was very busy sending money to Professor Magoha. This was at 2:30 that afternoon. And he wanted to M-Pesa to help in burial arrangement of his younger brother. So he sent the money successfully, and immediately Professor called back to say thank you. So my friend left the lunch table and went out to pick the call and came back and said, I just sent money to Professor. He was just acknowledging because he felt he was rude at a lunch table leaving. So in the evening when the news started coming in and somebody called me, said, Professor Magoha has passed on, I said, no, it's not Professor George. It is his younger brother. Because I did not believe that being privy to a conversation at 3 o'clock, somebody can then leave us 2-3 hours later. But that's what life is all about. That we live in this world at the grace of the grace of the Almighty. And that every minute we have is a borrowed minute. And that we need to do what we can to leave this world better than we found it. Fare thee well, our brother, Professor George Magoha.
Thank you, Peter. Professor Mwanda was already here to read the eulogy, but he is in the program as a friend and representing friends. I'd like him to take very few minutes because we're really running out of time. I've been warned about it, and I'd like to know, you can give us advice. we gave due protocol allowance for the governor of Nairobi in case he comes, so he sent his representative. We'd like the representative, if he's here, just to, or she is here, to come and tell us here in the front so that we can continue with that. And the rest, I think, who were supposed to talk are close by. Thank you.
On behalf of our departed friend, colleague, mentor, teacher, I stand here to read just one or two sentences about George as a friend. As friends, we shared many common beliefs and values. Toil and not ask for any rest. Labor and not ask for any reward. For at the end of the day, the Lord shall tell you, well done. Both of us cherished hard work and loyalty to authority. As a mentor, he enabled growth of knowledge and ideas. He enabled knowing what was not and what was wanted. He was credible, a positive role model, genuinely interested in his mentees as an individual, and shared experiences and insight. He had a commanding stature. He exuded power and authority. His presence would be felt, and his friends too would know what is expected at any occasion. He made friends feel that there is something worthwhile in them. Think only of the best, to work only for the best, and to expect only the best. As a colleague, he expected no mediocrity. His assigned responsibilities to be done were to be done the way he would have wanted to do it himself. Just as an example, he assigned me the responsibility of being the director of the University of Nairobi Institute of Tropical and Infectious Diseases, and he gave me the following commands: grow income, get international students, train researchers, capacity build to make Unity a level 4 institution. In biosafety and biosecurity. Yes, one of the important things which I must mention, we trained researchers from arid and semi-arid lands and chose those who are providing care services in health facilities from that region. The objectives were to improve implementable aspects of research and to demystify research as an elitist domain. At the end of 1 year, we had managed to train 180 persons. In capacity building, which became very useful during the Ebola crisis, we trained 244 laboratory staff, including mortuary staff, to be able to manage hemorrhagic fever such as Ebola. We trained workers in rapid response in cases of emergence of fever and biosecurity. To us, success was what we use, what we chose, what we are, what was true, and what to do, and more importantly, what to give. A friend indeed he was. And I must say I was among those who accompanied him to his in-laws to be. Rest in peace, Omore, till we meet again.
Thank you. Yesterday, at the residence of Professor Magoha, it was hosted by members of his profession, and the master of ceremony was Dr. Alwach, and he made all kinds of jokes, and it was at the expense of politicians like myself. How we have not gone to school, we cannot read speeches, and those sort of things. So I want to give him a chance now to prove his prowess in an area where he was, criticizing us. And I also have requested him that there must be several doctors who are here that we have not acknowledged. And he has reminded me that, you've only acknowledged politicians. Where are the doctors? And since there's a Swahili saying which says that when you're still giving birth, you don't disrespect the midwives. So I don't know when I'll next be at his clinic, or when I'm on a table when he's a surgeon. So most respectfully, sir, I ask you to acknowledge the doctors and tell them that it's not out of slighting them that I had not mentioned them. Thank you.
God is good, and all the time, the clergy, the family of Magoha, all protocol observed. But I'm going to break the protocol a little. I'm going to request you to have a 10-second medical or biological break, and also in honor of Magoha to stand up for 10 seconds and stretch yourself. Thank you very much. And I'm sure now you're awake to listen to me speaking. You may sit down. It's important that you listen to me. Okay, thank you. I'm here to present a very important constituency. I represent the doctor. It's important to note that Barbara and Mike are also doctors. And I represent very important doctors. I can't mention them because there are very many. And more important, probably this morning, I'm the most important speaker because I'm especially anointed. I'm representing the doctors, but I also come from game, and which is a very important, the only location you can find in English dictionary. The only